Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Today, we're tackling a topic that has literally been dominating internet forums and, let's be honest, triggering a massive collective gag reflex. Yep, we're talking about the completely wild viral trend of cockroach milk. Look, I know exactly what you're thinking. Just hearing the words cockroach and milk in the same sentence is enough to absolutely ruin your appetite. But stick with me here, because today we are going to separate the crazy media hype from the actual, frankly mind-blowing biological science. Because beneath all that initial disgust, there's a super fascinating story about evolutionary biology, media sensationalism, and how we're actually going to sustain our global food supply.
I mean, we've all seen it, right? You're casually scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and boom, you are hit with this incredibly sensationalized headline, "Scientists say cockroach milk is the next superfood." It's wild. This quote is literally the perfect example of how the news cycle can take a highly specific, microscopic scientific discovery and just blow it entirely out of proportion. Suddenly, the entire internet thinks the scientific community is part of some grand conspiracy to replace your morning glass of dairy with, well, bug juice. And naturally, people reacted with predictable horror, totally lambasting these quote-unquote crazy scientists.
Which really brings us to the big question we need to answer today. Are we actually destined for some kind of dystopian future where bug milk is being poured over our morning cereal? Like, are massive mega corporations secretly building underground farming facilities right now to harvest insect dairy? It's really easy to see why the public's imagination totally ran away with this one. You combine the trendy concept of a superfood with an insect that most of us associate with urban decay, and yeah, it creates a powerful, visceral reaction. But to get to the truth, we really have to peel back the layers of this whole internet myth.
So let's look at the core of the misunderstanding here, the internet myth versus the actual biological reality. The myth that went totally viral would have you believe that scientists are either pureeing whole cockroaches into some sort of paste, or they're extracting literal liquid white milk from them. But the biological reality, it's entirely different. What scientists actually discovered is a crystalline material that one specific type of cockroach produces to nourish its young inside a brood sac. So it's not a liquid at all. It is a highly dense, nutrient-rich crystal. It's just a really fascinating quirk of evolutionary biology, not a beverage alternative. And hey, just to clear up some genuinely hilarious public confusion right off the bat, cockroaches do not have nipples. When this story first broke, forums were absolutely flooded with people joking about the logistics of this. People were genuinely, though jokingly, wondering if someone was out there using tiny little milking stools or maybe training ants to do the milking for us. But as one pretty witty observer pointed out online, almonds don't have nipples either, right? But we still call it almond milk. In the scientific context, the word milk was just used really loosely to describe nutrient delivery to offspring. It is absolutely not the mammalian process we immediately picture in our heads.
But, the public's immediate disgust didn't just stop at the jokes about tiny milking stools. It led to some pretty intense cultural associations. The whole viral nature of the story instantly drew comparisons to those dark sci-fi dystopias. People immediately thought of those bleak, gelatinous insect protein bars from the movie Snowpiercer or the infamous Soylent Green. And it makes perfect sense. The idea of consuming cockroach excretions strikes this deep primal fear in us. It's that underlying anxiety that we've somehow exhausted all our natural resources to the point where we're forced to literally eat from the very bottom of the food chain just to survive.
To really understand how this whole narrative got so out of hand, we need to look back a bit. Notice the starting point here, the 1950s. Guys, this isn't even new science. These crystals were discovered decades ago, and they tell us some incredibly interesting things about how certain species efficiently transfer nutrients. But then, skip ahead to the present day, and suddenly we have all this clickbait media hype taking over. The underlying science hasn't drastically changed at all, but the way we share information online definitely has. The irony, though? The actual future of this material isn't anywhere near your fridge, it's in advanced medical applications.
Now, this quote pretty much perfectly captures the exact sentiment that was spreading like wildfire across message boards. Holy shit, they're trying to feed us cockroach milk. The news media actively twisted the research. And why? Well, because sensationalism secures clicks. Plus, in the world of science, widespread public attention can actually sometimes indirectly help secure research funding. The researchers simply noted in their study that the substance was incredibly nutrient-dense, that it's basically a complete food, chemically speaking. The media took that phrase, nutrient-dense, and spun it completely out of control into "scientists want you to drink bug milk." It is literally a classic case of the telephone game gone totally wrong.
But here is the ultimate reality check, summed up by one single staggering number: thousands.
The central controversy here, and the absolute main reason you are never ever going to see this on a supermarket shelf, is that commercial farming of this substance is literally impossible. To harvest even a minuscule microscopic amount of these nutrient crystals, you have to kill thousands of cockroaches. So there is absolutely no sustainable, humane, or economically viable way to scale this up for mass food production. It is a complete logistical nightmare, and the return on investment for the food industry is just zero.
So, that brings us to a pretty crucial point. If it is completely impractical to farm and it's not actually meant for human consumption, what on earth are the scientists actually doing with it? Well, as we just established, it's not fit for our diets, and it's a nightmare to harvest. But the true value of this research is actually mind-blowing. It lies in its potential as an injection medium for cancer drugs. The idea is to use its highly nutritious nature to specifically target cancer cells.
And this is where we see the real, life-changing potential of this research: cancer drug delivery. You see, cancer cells are notorious for having voracious appetites. They rapidly consume nutrients to fuel their own uncontrolled growth. So, scientists believe they can actually use the incredibly dense, highly nutritious nature of these cockroach crystals as a sort of Trojan horse. Basically, by using the crystal as a delivery medium that's loaded with cancer medication, those hungry cancer cells will eagerly consume the nutrient-rich package, and in doing so, directly ingest the medicine that's meant to destroy them. It is just a beautifully elegant, highly targeted medical solution.
Section 12. The Future of Insect Protein. Real Solutions. Now, while bottling cockroach crystals is definitively a myth, we really shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. The anxiety that sparked that whole controversy? It's incredibly valid. Utilizing insect protein to solve global food shortages is a very real, very practical endeavor. But the biggest hurdle we face isn't biological, it's purely psychological. We're talking about eating large insects versus processed insects. Culinary experts note that small insects actually make for pretty good eating. They easily take on the flavor of whatever they're cooked in. The problem is with the big ones. Eating them whole presents a massive mental hurdle for people, especially in Western cultures. It's the texture issue, right? The crunchy outside combined with the gooey inside. It's just incredibly difficult for the average consumer to mentally get past that, even if it actually tastes fine. And that is exactly why food engineers are focusing so heavily on processing them instead.
Which leads us to highly efficient, genuinely accessible alternatives like cricket flour. Instead of asking someone to just crunch down on a whole bug, the insects are desiccated, which just means they're completely dried out and then ground down into a fine, versatile powder. This totally bypasses the gross-out factor. You can bake it into bread, you can blend it into a protein shake, or use it in energy bars. And the real magic here is the efficiency. Creating this flour uses a tiny fraction of the land and water that traditional livestock like cows or pigs need. It's a wildly more efficient use of our planet's rapidly dwindling resources.
And hey, if we really want to get back to the idea of bug milk, there actually is a very real, non-dystopian way to create a synthetic version. Here's how it works. Step 1, you take small, easily farmable insects and press them to extract their highly concentrated fats and proteins. Step 2, you take that extraction, add a natural gelling agent and some water to give it that familiar liquid consistency. And step 3, you call it milk. Logically, as we kind of touched on earlier, there is no real reason this is any more ridiculous than pressing oats or soaking almonds and calling that milk. It's really just a highly efficient, scientifically extracted protein beverage.
Yet, despite these highly logical, environmentally sustainable, and totally scientifically sound solutions, we still hit a massive wall, and that wall is human emotion. This quote from our sources perfectly encapsulates the public pushback. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Even when you completely remove the clickbait and you explain the medical benefits and you show exactly how processing insects into flour or synthetic milk can save vast amounts of water and land, the internet's reaction often just defaults back to visceral disgust. For so many people, the mental association with insects is just way too strong a barrier to overcome, honestly, no matter how much sense the actual science makes.
So, after separating the wildly exaggerated media hype from the actual, groundbreaking reality of crystal drug delivery and sustainable farming, I want to leave you with this final thought. Knowing everything you know right now about the environmental efficiency and the sheer logic behind all of this, would you ever try scientifically extracted insect flour or synthetic bug milk if it meant literally saving our planet? It's a question we might all have to answer a whole lot sooner than we think. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you next time.